Paging Dr. Teel is a podcast dedicated to highlighting the importance of a holistic approach to mental health, which emphasizes the connection between the mind, body, and spirit. The goal of holistic wellness is to achieve maximum well-being where all domains are functioning at their best. When it comes to holistic health, we're looking beyond the physical body and addressing physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual health collectively. I'm Dr. Teel, your psychologist bestie and host of Paging Dr. Teel. Join me on a highly relatable journey of discovery, holistic wellness, and being happier, healthier, and whole. With holistic wellness, people accept responsibility for their own level of well-being, and everyday choices are used to take charge of one's own health. Health is wealth, so take care of yourself, friends. Paging Dr. Teel is currently available on Anchor, Apple, or Spotify. But regardless as to how you listen to the podcast, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and write us a review. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Paging Dr. Teel, and visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteel.com. And if you have a question or situation you want to receive some guidance on, send them to pagingdrteel@gmail.com. I'm here for you, so I want to hear from you, friend. Friends, I got a question for you. Quick question. How do we change? Have you ever been with somebody and it didn't seem like they would ever change? They just were very stubborn and stuck in their ways. Like, I think we all have. But that's neither here nor there. How do we change is a simple question with a complicated answer, but let me give you a quick theory. In short, we change through experience. We change by learning and then subsequently applying what we learned in that situation moving forward. And then we also have to build upon that. The never-ending story, right? Now on to the longer version. Scientifically speaking, we're wired for change and growth. Most of the cells and tissues in our bodies are constantly regenerating. However, our habits and lifestyle dictate how long this process takes. Peep game though. They lied when they said you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Shout out to all the dogs that don't ever learn a new trick and are stuck in their ways. We all know one or two of these dogs. Shout out to you dogs. But friends, we're going to do better because you actually can teach a dog new tricks if that dog is willing, if that person is willing. Believe it or not, neuroscientists have proven that our brains can rejuvenate and improve themselves. Our brains form new neurons throughout our entire lifespan, and connections and functions in the brain change as well. What we do every day influences our brain function, and we can participate actively and consciously in this rewiring of our brains. The brain's ability to rewire itself as a result of life experience is what we call neuroplasticity. That's right. Our brains are plastic, friends, which means they are highly amenable to change, and what we do on a daily basis shapes our brains. So that means it's never too late to change and build new habits. Neuroplasticity gives us the power to shape our brain and subsequently change our lives. Hashtag don't believe me, just watch. Did you like that song? That Bruno Mars song? Don't believe me, just watch. Did you like that, friends? That's what I thought about when I was reading the hashtag. I didn't want to say it because I felt like it would sound corny, but it just, as you can see, it just jumped out of me. But anyways, to the examples. So I have some compelling examples that highlight neuroplasticity and just how it's a game changer. Number one, the adult brain has approximately 100 billion neurons, and education increases the number of branches among neurons, increasing the volume and thickness of the brain. What does that mean? So that means learning is like a mental exercise in which your brain gets bigger and stronger. You know, that's why we tell our kids, honey, you got to go to school so you can grow up and be big and strong. You got to learn all these different things. Like, it's true. Learning is what shapes our brain and improves our functioning. So the brain is like a muscle that needs mental workouts to grow. Learning and brain exercises slow age-related mental decline and even improve brain functioning. There's also evidence that exercise promotes creation of new neurons in the brain as well through a process called neurogenesis. Specifically designed brain exercises have been shown to strengthen weak brain functions in children and adults with learning disabilities. For example, rote memorization can help with the auditory memory, handwriting and strengthening motor capabilities, and adds speed and fluency to reading. I've got another example for you. So let's say you were blindfolded for 2 days. Your visual cortex would reorganize itself to process sound and touch. So that means you have your blindfold on, you can't see, and that's your primary mode of sensory input. In that situation, your other senses would overcompensate. So your hearing would improve. Your sense of touch would improve to overcompensate for your lack of vision. Isn't that cool? But once you took your blindfold off, for example, the visual cortex would stop responding to tactile and auditory signals in that way, in that heightened way, within 12 to 24 hours. So I say all this to say, friends, the brain is legit like a muscle. If you train it with the appropriate experiences, it'll grow in a way that allows you to live a harmonious life regardless of your circumstances. We have to exert the control that we do have over our inner world through our daily practices and habits, just due to the fact that we don't have any control over the external world. We don't have control over people, our circumstances in some cases, life happening on life's terms. But I think if we practice dedication and effectively balance and control our inner world, then we have the ability to thrive no matter what. With these things in mind, friend, I'm going to start teaching all of you some new tricks, starting with communication. Communication lays the foundation for all relationships. It's a high in-demand soft skill, professionally speaking, and positive communication or effective, healthy communication significantly impacts emotional well-being. Healthy people are happier. I don't know if you knew that or not, but healthy people are happier, and effective communication can be utilized as a tool that has the ability to improve your quality of life. And if you operate with a lower level of stress, you have better social relationships, then that's going to positively affect your mood and your emotional well-being, which is also going to have a positive effect on your physical well-being. So it's like a vicious cycle of sorts. And our best course of action oftentimes is targeting our habits and improving skills so that we can live our best lives today. As such, we're going to be diving into communication basics today. And then later on in the series, we're going to get into part 2 and 3, which will feature tools, tips, and styles of communication. So this is going to be a 3-part series regarding communication. This is episode 1. There are going to be 2 following episodes. You don't want to miss that. I'm going to be giving you all the things that we should have learned in school about communication. Passive communication versus assertive communication, different tools specific to the workplace and conflict resolution, all the things they should have taught us in high school, elementary school, and maybe even college. I got you, friend. I got you. No worries. And with this information, I hope to arm you with the knowledge and tools to use effective communication as a means of holistic wellness. Why? Because our health is our wealth, friends. friends, today we're talking all about communication. Communication is the core to everything within the human experience. Did you know that? It impacts how we work with others, function on teams, and actually perceive ourselves. By learning to convey your thoughts, emotions, and opinions more effectively, you'll enjoy greater success in every area of your life. And that's pretty much what I'm talking about, friends. Happy people are healthier. If we feel better, then we experience more positive physical health outcomes. Happy people are in fact healthier. Have you noticed that? So why is communication so important? We're social beings. We were put here for the purpose of procreation. And so in order to procreate, that requires a certain degree of social savviness in order to facilitate that entire process. So we're naturally socially beings, and being social has been adaptive from an evolutionary perspective. My good friend Maslow, in fact, defined our basic needs as consisting of physiological, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization. Given that I'm a firm believer in the idea that teamwork makes the dream work, one could fundamentally argue that we need people in order to satisfy all these hierarchy of needs, as described by Maslow, regardless of whether we're willing to admit it or not. I know that we all know someone that says they don't need people, and I think that's so very not true. In fact, that's likely a defense mechanism due to fear or abandonment. But that's a whole nother episode, so let me move on. Back to communication. Effective communication can reduce stress and anxiety, solve problems, teach us to compromise, and foster greater confidence. Who doesn't want to be more confident? Healthy communication also creates stronger, more satisfying relationships, allows us to learn the needs of others so that we can better respond, and teaches us to use clear communication to convey what we need. So if your partner is able to more effectively communicate their needs, and you're able to more effectively communicate your needs, and everyone understands, then we can all satisfy our needs and everyone's happy. That's a win, right? So professionally speaking, I found that one of the most common underlying implications that leads people into therapy is communication or the lack thereof. Also, in my experience, people with issues stemming from communication tend to fall in 1 to 2 categories. They either tend to be over communicators or they're under communicators. Oftentimes, over or under communication, wherever they fall on that spectrum, these individuals tend to lack either the motivation or self-awareness to communicate in a more balanced and adaptive fashion. Can you think of somebody like that in your life, friend? Someone that is either an over communicator or an under communicator? I know you can, but while you're thinking of that, let me hit you off with a quick teachable tangent. So what's an under communicator versus an over communicator? First of all, I definitely made these terms up. They are based on my personal and professional experience, psychological theory, and what I know about the literature. Low key, this is how new theories are born, though. So bear with me as I shoot my shot here. So an under communicator naturally under communicates. They engage in a less active style of communication. They tend to listen far more than they speak, and they're less likely to openly disagree with another person. In my opinion, my humblest opinion, under communication likely stems from some of the following different tenets. So an under communicator is likely to have a passive temperament, a trauma history. They demonstrate a lack of assertiveness. Maybe they have low self-esteem. They often have low functioning anxiety, an avoidant disposition, or just a tendency to engage in a more passive-aggressive fashion when it comes to dealing with others. Now, conversely, our over-communicators, the over-communicators, Mr. Nuck if you buck, hashtag Mr., Miss, or they have to have the last word, AKA I'm always right. Now, these over-communicators, they often engage in very direct, in-your-face type of interpersonal style. They tend to dominate the conversation, and oftentimes they overly volunteer their unsolicited opinions. Don't you just hate that? Nobody asked you, right? Over communication can stem from the following: narcissism, high functioning anxiety, unresolved anger, trauma, or just emotional maturity. But in my personal experience, type A personalities are often guilty of this over communication situation, if you will. Overall, under or over communication reflects an unbalanced and extreme style of communication that can lead to various life difficulties which negatively affect our health. Speaking of which, undercommunicators often internalize their unresolved issues and stress, which are later manifested somatically. That means it comes out in their body in some way, some sort of symptom. So emotions are just energy in motion, if you ask me. So if you undercommunicate and keep everything inside, this trapped emotional energy is likely to reappear as a physical ailment, and the research definitely supports that. Do your research. In regards to our overcommunicators, they tend to live with their metaphoric finger on the trigger, always ready to shoot. Always. This hypervigilant nature contributes to hypertension, which we all know isn't healthy. In fact, research has demonstrated that a relationship between the type A personality, hypertension, increased job stress, and social isolation. So there is a link between being type A, having hypertension, and increased job stress and social isolation. I had to say that for you guys again. Let me bring it back one more time for my type A personalities in the back. Let me make it clear, since we're talking about clear communication, and I fumbled a little bit, but I'm the quarterback, so let me throw this ball down the field for you. In fact, research has demonstrated a relationship between the type A personality, hypertension, increased job stress, and social isolation. Hashtag calm down. It's good for your heart. I'm done. Overall, communication is fundamental to our well-being, friends. Communication lays the foundation for everything. Communication is key. So why not use this tool to positively impact the quality of our lives, right? Not always easy. Again, this is not something that we were taught in school. This is not something that is often modeled in our environments. But remember, happy people are healthier. So whether you undercommunicate or overcommunicate, we're all lucky enough to have this natural inner mechanism that I spoke about earlier. Let's see if you remember. What is it called? We all have this ability within us to overcome unhelpful habits. What is it? Through neuroplasticity, friend. Through the gift that is neuroplasticity, due to the fact that our brains are plastic and very amenable to the conditions of our environment, we're able to overcome. But I think that takes being intentional and challenging ourselves. See, we're talking about communication, and I'm just fumbling over my words a little bit. I think it's time for me to get some water. Have you been drinking your water? If you haven't, maybe it's time for you to grab some water too. Today we're talking about communication. After this short break, we're going to get into the elements of communication and hopefully arm you with some tools to be happier, healthier, and whole, because our health is our wealth. So we're going to take care of ourselves. And if anything, you know I'm here for you, friends. So I definitely want to hear from you. If you have any questions, if you have any comments regarding the communication series, please be sure to hit me up on the Instagram at Paging Dr. Teel, Facebook at Paging Dr. Teel, or slide over to the website real quick at www.pagingdrteel.com. A part of staying ready so you don't have to get ready is securing the bag. Health is wealth, and that includes financial health. So since we've got a little extra change to stimulate the economy instead of blowing your money on things that don't matter or depreciate with value, why not do yourself a favor and invest in your financial literacy? Check out my girl, Ashley Gross, the owner, financial specialist, and credit coach of Harvest Time Financial, your one-stop shop for one-on-one financial coaching, credit restoration and building, legacy income and protection, and notary services. Are you ready to take your financial situation to the next level? Don't settle and live with bad debt. Treat yourself to a fresh start with Harvest Time Financial. Harvest Time Financial can help with medical bills, collections, late payments, charge-offs, repossessions, and bankruptcy. Contact Harvest Time Financial today via email at harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com for your free 30-minute consultation and get a head start on your future harvest. Again, that's harvesttimefinancial@gmail.com, and be sure to check them out on Instagram at Harvest Time Financial and tell them that Dr. Teel sent you. You're welcome. This commercial break is being brought to you by Wiseman Marketing, reminding you to seek knowledge, understanding, and wisdom because the world belongs to those who prepare for it. Stay wise, guys, and check them out at wisemanmarketing.com. We're back, and I'm here just drinking my water and minding my business, friend. I hope you are too. Today, we're talking all about communication. Side note, though, how different would the world be if we didn't have social media? I don't know about you, but I grew up during the time where the internet was just emerging. And so unlike my younger brother, who is about 10 years younger than me, I didn't grow up as a kid with social media, thankfully. And he did. And it's just interesting how communication and dynamics interpersonally have been affected by social media. I blame social media, though, for our inability to communicate. More specifically, social media is to blame for our shorter attention spans. Social media has turned us into such dopamine fiends, fostered this false sense of entitlement and the, oh, look at me spirit, as well as completely undercut the value of in-person, meaningful communication. But that's just my 2 cents. Let's move on. So there are 6 elements in the communication process. 6. There's the sender, the idea, encoding, the receiver, decoding, and feedback. Now, the sender and the receiver are more obvious aspects of this process, so we're not going to get into that. So we'll slide on over to the less obvious aspects. First, there's the idea. So when we communicate, there's a central idea, if you will, that we're trying to convey to someone else. This is the subject matter of the communication, and it may be an opinion, an attitude, a feeling, a view, an order, or just a suggestion. So we have an idea that we're trying to convey to this third party. Then there's the encoding and decoding process, which essentially is taking the idea and making it make sense. So encoding and decoding entails the intake and the conversion of certain symbols, such as words, actions, and pictures. We all have different experiences, that goes without saying, but those differences in experience impact the meaning or value that we assign to these symbols that we're attempting to decode through language. So then we have to make it all make sense with our lived experience, what we think this person is saying, and our own internal dialogue that we have going on simultaneously while we're having a conversation. As such, making it make sense should not be a solo act. Remember, we all live in perception-based realities, friend. My perception and your perception are going to be totally different, and we could be in the same room and working the same job. Perception is purely reality-based. Reality is perception based. Let me say it that way. Reality is perception based. Did I make myself clear that time? See? Reality is perception based. So we all live in our own realities based off our perceptions. And that's often why we have differences of opinions and misagreements. So my perception is different from yours and vice versa. So communication has to be employed as a tool for us to meet in the middle or assist in bringing others into our own personal world. Speaking of which, listening, if you ask me, is one of the most important elements of communication. Listening is so very important. Feedback is a close second. So feedback in this communication process. Feedback is the process of ensuring that the receiver has received the message and understood that message in the sense that it's meant to be understood. Let me say that again. Feedback is the process of ensuring that the receiver has received the message and understood it in the sense as the sender meant. Now, just because you said something doesn't mean the person on the other side of that communication is in your mind and understands what you're saying unless you are very clear and concise. A lot of miscommunications result from a lack of understanding. So this person says something, the other person doesn't understand it, so the sender doesn't feel heard, and that creates an issue. Or conversely, oftentimes in relationships, perfect example, in relationships, men tend to say, well, women, you're always nagging, you're talking about the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over. If I'm talking to you about the same thing over and over and over again, that means to me that I don't feel like you heard me and understood me, which is why I am bringing it up again. I am not bringing it up for the sake of having an argument. No, I don't want to argue. I want to be understood, and I want to move forward. And I think oftentimes most people in general feel that way. So feedback in the communication process is super duper important because you want to be clear that you understand what is being stated so you can decide what to do with it. Understanding should be followed by validation and considering the other person's perspective. So that means you literally have to put yourself in their shoes because most people just want to be heard and understood. Agreement isn't always the requirement. You don't have to agree to understand or listen. You just have to hear. And see, that's my water popping in the background, not minding its business. Being a hater. But I hope you're drinking your water and minding your business. Nevertheless, while you're in this process of giving feedback, making sure you understand what's being communicated to you, a good tool to utilize is clarification. And you can clarify simply by asking questions. Oftentimes, miscommunication results from a breakdown in the encoding and decoding process, which is further complicated by low frustration tolerance from both parties involved. I know that's a lot. That's a lot, but in some, communication is not a simple process. Communication is not, I say something, you understand, we move on. There are a lot of moving parts that go into effective communication and conveying yourself, and I think it's important to understand those elements so that you can better utilize that knowledge to address areas of miscommunication in your life. So happy people are healthier, and effective communication can be used as a tool to improve the quality of life. Friend, oftentimes things get lost in translation, and we stress, and stress leads to problems, and the reality of it is that we could have just had an honest conversation and resolved that issue before we created that stress due to the miscommunication. Side note, overthinking something in your head when you have a problem with another person is counterproductive. How so? I'm so glad you asked. First of all, Our inner voice is naturally a hot mess and very irrational, and you can quote me on that. In our minds, everything sounds like a good idea. It seems logical and rational, but oftentimes once we've actually had a conversation and processed that thought with another person, what you originally perceived or thought or assumed might not even be valid. As such, it's important to challenge our primal irrationality through communication and healthy coping. # you're welcome. Ready to take your communication to the next level? Here are 2 questions you should ask when attempting to encode and decode a concern before you offer feedback to the sender. Number 1, what is the real challenge here for you? So you ask your loved one, what is the real challenge here for you, honey? This question allows you to hone in on the problem before you've jumped in to help with something that isn't even really a problem. And then number 2, my favorite, how can I help? Often we assume based off what we think we know about the person and our past experiences with others that we already know what to do and what they need. To solve the problem, it's important to be specific and not assumptive. It is unfair to think that you can anticipate the needs of others and not ask. # how dare you? As such, 2 questions to ask to ensure that you understand what's being communicated to you or to help resolve miscommunications. What is the real challenge here for you? And how can I help? You're welcome again, friend. Friends, I'm tired of talking. I'm done communicating. But before we get out of here, today we talked about the importance of communication. I've covered some of the elements of communication and provided you, my friends, with some tools to help you navigate through miscommunications. And it's my hope always that the information provided is entertaining, enlightening, and empowering for you to further invest in your mental and physical health. So before we get out of here, some profound thoughts about nothing. So I didn't make this up. I actually saw this on Instagram and I was like, I love this. I liked it so much that I even printed it out and put it on my wall at my office. And then in one of my therapy groups at work, I even passed out copies and we processed it and talked about it in the group. You want to hear it? Here it goes. Mind the business that pays you. Let me stop. I'm kidding. I actually wanted to put that on my coworker's office door, but that's not nice, even if it's true. Anywho, let's get into this quote. All right. So being calm about everything allows your mind to find solutions. Calmness is a state of trust. Instead of overthinking and overreacting, you just surrender for that moment and allow yourself to receive guidance for what doesn't make sense. So I hope that with the tools that I've provided you guys and the entertainment and the information, you're able to move forward and be calm in your communication. Because we have 2 ears and 1 mouth because we're supposed to listen more than we talk. All right, so Paging Dr. Teel is currently available on Anchor, Apple, and Spotify. But regardless as to how you listen, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and write us a review. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Paging Dr. Teel, and visit us on the web at www.pagingdrteel.com. And check us out next week for part 2 of the communication series. This is part 1. We've got part 2 and part 3 coming up. Got some real good stuff for you, friends. Until next time, later, friends. Wait. I forgot something. I said bye, but I forgot to say the most important thing that I say before I say bye. Your health is your wealth, so take care of yourself. All right, friends. Until next time.